Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Double B's Garage. Today we're going to be having some fun on the Supra. Now, as you guys know, the Supra has been fully painted. I've been driving it a little bit. It is running flawlessly. Everything about the car I absolutely love. I love the sequential turbos, how they kick in, and I've been having a lot of fun with the car. And so there's a lot of good about the car, right? The paint is amazing. The motor's got less than 61,000 miles on it. It's a one family-owned vehicle. And I love the color combination, along with the fact that it's an original 6-speed left-hand drive twin turbo. Now, with that being said, there's a couple bad things about the car, and really it relates to what I consider kind of a ticking time bomb. This car, out of all the service history I have, which is a bunch, has never had the timing belt done. So I acquired a timing belt, I acquired a new water pump, I got an idler pulley, I got the front main crank seal, even though it's not leaking. I got the cam seals, even though they're not leaking, at least that I'm aware of. So we're gonna dive in and we're actually gonna do all that. We're gonna replace the whole kind of front part of the motor with regards to the timing belt. We're gonna do a serpentine belt. I already mentioned the water pump and the idler pulley. All those things you kind of do when you access this area. I mean, they're right in front of you. If you're doing the timing belt, which you have to take a lot of those things off to get to anyways, it just makes sense to do it right, so that myself down the road or the new owner at some point down the road can enjoy this car and really have confidence in knowing that it's going to run really well and be reliable. What I did do before that, though, is I bought a dye kit. So there's like a little tube or a little bottle of stuff that you dump in the oil, and then you have like a yellow lens sunglasses with like a blue light on a flashlight. And what you do is you put it in the oil, you drive the car for a while, and then you bring it back to the house and you put it on the lift and you look around and try to find leaks. And lo and behold, there is no leaks. I cannot find this dye coming out anywhere, which is fantastic news. I know the oil pan gasket had been done and it was around 57 or 58,000 miles. So I know that's done, so that's good. But the nice thing is we don't have to address that, right? So that was something that I was either gonna have to lower the subframe and support the top of the motor, or pull the entire motor out of the car to do the oil pan, because there's no way to do the oil pan with the motor sitting in the car like it is right now. So as of now, there's no need to do any of that stuff. We looked that over. Remember, the car had residue underneath the bottom of the car, but that was when we were cleaning the car from sitting for 10 years, and after they had done, two valve cover gaskets over the history of the car. Well, when they do the valve cover gaskets, no mechanic is going to take the time to clean the engine bay and clean the motor and clean the subframe and do all that stuff, which is what I did. So I did all that to make sure we had a clean slate, and lo and behold, it is still perfectly clean under there and looks amazing. So that is awesome news. So today what we're going to be doing is basically breaking down the front end and getting this kind of prep to access the timing belt. So I'll take you along with me on that ride, but I just wanted to give you a quick introduction. It's been really fun and exciting to drive this car. I mean, people talk about these cars and how sought after they are, and I feel very fortunate to be able to have access to buy the car and have been able to enjoy it and it be such a good car. A lot of these cars have a ton of stories. I mean, I still have the original window sticker when this was bought from the family that I bought it from. So it's really, really good to be able to be involved in something like that, and I'm just excited to work on it. I'll show you some of the stuff that I got laying on the floor here, which is all the stuff. I bought it all from Toyota. I just wanted to make sure it was just the top-notch stuff. There's obviously places you can buy parts from, parts suppliers and vendors that sell OEM-style parts. But I figured I'm just going to go to Toyota on this one and just get it done right. So everything is Toyota: the water pump, the thermostat, the tensioner, idler pulley, all that stuff, including the timing belt. So, anyways. Thanks for joining me on this ride, and let's get into it. There's all the goodies. Valve cover gaskets, even though they've already been done. This is a sub-assembly absorber. This is like an absorber for the tensioner pulley and I think some of the belting, but we'll see once we get in there what exactly that is. There's another tensioner assembly. This is the type oil seal and the cam seals. We have the brand new water pump right over here with all the seals that come with it. And then we have a timing belt, and then I have 2 serpentine belts. They're 2 different numbers. I don't think they're the same length, but there was 2 numbers that came up for the car when I bought those. Those I actually bought like on Rock Auto, but when I bought those, I bought 2 just to make sure I had the right one and I can just return whatever I don't use. And then there's the idler pulley right there, and then some valve cover gaskets, but these are the ones from Toyota that I probably will use. So let's get started. If you look in here, we have to, I already took this nut off right here, but we have to pull this guy off. And then we're gonna get the radiator shroud off. I have to drain the radiator. We gotta take the radiator out. And then I got a special tool to remove the crank pulley, but we gotta take the fan off, the water pump assembly. There's that tensioner that I was just talking about. And then we gotta get access to all into here. So that's what we'll do here in the next 30 minutes or so. I find it easier to remove the battery and actually the plastic tray underneath. This helps to remove the plastic shroud surrounding the radiator when you remove it later. Now we'll drain the radiator through the little petcock, after which we will remove the lower boost pipe that goes across the lower half of the radiator. This gives us access to remove the things above and gives us a better access to the crank bolt if we are accessing that from below. Now we loosen the idler pulley, which allows us to slack the belt, enabling us to remove the belt, and then that shock absorber that I discussed earlier. Now we're removing the fan assembly. I believe these are 12mm nuts. They're only on with like 13 or 15 foot-pounds, so it's very easy to get access to them. After which we loosen up the alternator so the alternator can hang down and gives us better access to the water pump and also the belt tensioner later on. The bolt you see me removing right here, I did not need to remove. I thought I did, but did not, so you do not need to do that. Now we're accessing the crank pulley bolt, but we had to use this special tool. I bought it on Amazon for about $20, and that allowed us to keep the crank pulley from moving while we loosen the bolt. That sits at 243 foot-pounds, so it's hard to loosen, and it's also hard to tighten later on. Now you see me rotating the motor to ensure that the timing marks are lined up on the tops of both pulleys and the crank pulley at 0 before removing the crank pulley itself. All right, first look. Honestly, all things considered, it's pretty dry in there. This actually appears to be changed. This does not look like the original water pump. I could be wrong, but that looks almost brand new. That tensioner looks pretty new, which we're replacing all that anyways. And this belt looks to be in fantastic shape. So, you know, when you don't have the service history on a car, I mean, you could spend extra money and not really need to, but it's one of these things that I wanted to make sure was done. So we'll do all this because we have to, right? But this is the tensioner right here. I'll be loosening that up from the bottom. The new one comes with a pin that I'll pull out when I release it against the belt, but that looks brand new. That looks brand new. All right, let's see what we got here. Here I'm releasing the tensioner itself. I believe those are 12mm bolts. They're actually held on with like 20 foot-pounds of pressure to hold the tension, but it was very easy to get those off. And then that is a 10mm Allen key that holds the actual tensioner wheel. Now you see me just aligning some of the pulleys. Even though they fit on with the Woodruff key, I want to make sure that everything is documented in line, so when I put it back together, there's no question about whether I'm putting it on correctly. All right, brief update. I was able actually to pull this off by my hands, so that was fantastic. I didn't have to use any heat or any type of puller. The other good and bad news is the seal looks brand new.
I mean, there's a little residue down here, but I just think it's from all the other leaks over the past years, you know, that they fixed and never cleaned up. So again, we're going to replace this main seal, but it doesn't look like it needs it. There's no moisture down here on the bottom, again, other than really old stuff. There's no moisture from my dye. I checked that with the glasses. So I'm just going to give this a clean once over with brake fluid or brake cleaner, and then we'll do this seal, and then we'll start to get the water pump up and do all that. So I'm loosening the water pump here along with the upper hose assembly that attaches to the side of the block. These are very easy. You need to be careful though, because there are two types of bolts, which I will address later on upon reassembly later in the video. But for now, it's easy just to get these removed and get the water pump assembly out. Hey everybody, welcome back. Another day, same clothes, working on the Supra. Before I can put the water pump back on, I need to address the cam gears, the cam gear seals. So I have to remove the coil packs in here, and then also the wiring, these hoses, and then remove the valve cover so I can hold the cam when I undo these nuts to be able to get these sprockets off and then get the plate off, and then I can change the gasket behind there. Everything else is prepped and ready to go. I got to change that O-ring for the water pump, but the water pump is brand new and ready to go in. I just can't do any of that stuff until I fix this. So this is the old water pump here, and this is the old connector hose. It just looked all gummy, so I figured I would just replace it with a new one. And then I have two new seals for that. I'm keeping this bolt in here to hold my place. This is a new thermostat, and that's all cleaned out and ready to go back in there. And then here's the new water pump right here. So here's that new connector rod that I'll put the O-rings in, which are in this piece. And then this is a new seal for the neck to go onto the side of the head. Everything else is ready, but first we got to get out the coil packs, get off the valve covers, which is not going to be fun, I don't think, because some of the bolts are really hard to get to. And then we will get to those cam gears, change those out, and then the car can go back together. So really, I think we're probably 4 hours from being done, depending on how long it takes me to get to get to this valve cover off. But I need to get that done so I can get to the cam gears. And you know, I want to do this right since I'm here. So let's get after it. Be sure to check all of your hoses when you're in here. My hoses were very supple and not cracking or dry, so I did not need to replace the two connecting hoses between the valve covers. Also, I used a magnet. A lot of times when you're removing these bolts, once they get loose, there's nothing to pull them out with because they don't sit in the socket or the wrench anymore. So I use a magnet to help me pull them out. Afterwards, I removed all the coil packs, which also are very easy to come out. You might have to wiggle them back and forth a little bit because they're kind of attached to the spark plugs, but for the most part, it was very simple. Also a great time to change the spark plugs. Here you see me using the wrench. There's actually a spot on the cam that the wrench will fit on. I believe it's a 30 millimeter wrench. It might be a 32, but I'll verify. You hold the cam and then you loosen up the cam bolt. Then you can tweak the cam back to ensure that it's still at top dead center. So you can fully remove the pulleys and then get to this cover, which reveals the cam seals behind it. I would use a seal puller for the crank pulley seal, but for these seals, it's all you have to do is loosen up the cam caps, which you see me doing here, which basically makes the seal fall out. Very, very simple to do, very easy to do, and also a great way to ensure the seal goes back in correctly without damaging it. After you get your seals in place, before you can put on your valve covers, you need to clean off the old RTV sealant, which is on the left and right side of each cam cap. You see me using a plastic razor blade here to ensure that I'm not damaging the aluminum head. Once this has all been cleaned off, then you'll know where to put your new RTV sealant once you go to put the valve covers back on. All right, so those are done. The cam seals are done. Now I'm gonna put the valve cover gaskets back on, which I just mentioned. You guys don't need to see that. I just pulled them off and put them back on, tightening them all down. I told you where I was going to put the RTV at. And then once that's done, I'll get the plate back on. And then once the plate's back on, we can do the front main seal. And then once the front main seal is done, this thing can go back together. So I'm excited to get this far. It's a lot of work by yourself, but it's very rewarding because I know the car is going to be basically good to go for many years to come. And whether that's me or somebody else owning the vehicle. So more to come here quickly. Don't make the mistake of trying to put the valve covers on before you put these back on. I had this valve cover all the way on and realized that I still needed to grab the cam with the wrench before I could tighten this and torque it back to 55 foot-pounds. So had to take the valve cover off. Luckily, I just had tightened this one valve cover on. I got the valve cover off. This obviously wasn't on. Retorqued these down to 55 after putting on the plate, and then put both valve covers back on, and then put the wiring back in, and then obviously put the hoses back on. I connected all the hoses in the back, except for that. But everything else is connected. Everything's good to go back there, so I don't need to touch anything back there. Now what I'm going to do is try to take out the front main seal. I already tried to pick at it a little bit just to see if it was going to come out easy, but it doesn't appear to be. All right, I used 2 of them together. I pushed against this right here, and oh, we got it. Whew. That was no fun, but these together right here were strong enough to go underneath this guy and then tug out. So we got it out. So that's awesome. Okay, so now I gotta clean that up and get the new one in. The new main here. Don't laugh, but this is what I found that matches the size. And it works perfectly. I don't know how I can get much better than that. I'm gonna hammer at the top a little bit more here. There we go. Just to give this a little more lubricity when I'm trying to push this on. This was able to pull off just with my just with manual pressure, so I'm trying to look at that. What? Look down here. It's all brand new. This is new. The shaft is new, and then I was trying to get the gasket up in this area, which connects to this guy right here. So that's what I'm tightening now. All right, we made a ton of progress, which is fantastic. I got the water pump on and it's all torqued. I'll show you. These are all 15 foot-pounds. There's actually two types of bolts on this water pump. There's a type A bolt, which goes in this hole, and the one down here, and those are partially threaded bolts. And what you do is you put those in first, hand tighten those, and then you can put the rest of them in, and then you tighten everything down to 15 foot-pounds. Now we're gonna be putting in the idler pulley. The idler pulley is this guy right here. We don't have to worry about the tensioner or anything at this time. We just need to get the idler pulley in so it kind of sits freely in there and floats, and then we'll put the tensioner in a minute. One of the things that I've been using to really kind of help me guide through this, this maintenance process, you can download free Supra manuals online. You can find them. But I actually bought recreations of the manuals. So these are basically printed versions, and I have one for the engine, which you can see how thick this thing is, and then I have one for the body, electrical, all that kind of stuff, so everything else, right? But we're doing the idler pulley now. That's this device right here. It talks about to use 3-bond 1344 or Loctite 244 or equivalent. I have an equivalent thread locker that I'm going to be using just to put it on 2 or 3 threads, and then you need a 10mm Allen bolt, and it torques to 25 foot-pounds, so I'll do that. Every other bolt's been torqued appropriately. Like I said, 15 down here, and I'm kind of slowly doing or working through that stuff. But now we're going to put on the idler pulley, which is a crucial part to this, and I'll get a little of the Loctite on here so we're good to go. Okay. All right, so that is thread that guy in. Don't forget the washer on the back here. There's a washer that spaces this off from the block and lines up the belt appropriately. So I'll go back to 25. All right, so that's good. Yep, perfect. We can let that spin freely right now. We don't got to worry about the tensioner yet until we get the belt on. All right, so installing the new timing belt now. It actually comes with this sticker right here, which allows you to basically maintenance record, you know, date replaced, odometer reading, all that stuff. So I'll be putting that in the engine bay somewhere so that somebody else can know that this has been done. That's very important. Putting in the tensioner now. Remember, do not pull that pin until you're fully in and you know the belt and everything is lined up, because once you put that in, you'd have to put it back in a vise to get the piston back down to put the pin back in it. So ideally, don't pull the pin until you know you have the ability to, and once everything is on and matches up appropriately. Here you see me reinstalling this special tool. This will allow me to hold the crank in place when I torque it back down. I did not end up torquing it fully in this position. I ended up coming in from underneath the car because we had more room, because I had already put the fan on the water pump in a future video or a future scene. What I did now is I just put the bolt in tight enough to where I could rotate the motor 2 full revolutions to make sure that all the timing marks and everything were lined up so that we were good to go before I continued to tighten things, torque down the crank bolt, and then get all the panels back on. You want to make sure you do this, because if for some reason one of those teeth on the cam gear went sideways and jumped and the belt is off, the cam timing and the motor timing will not match, and therefore you'll have to back up and then alter that before you move forward. So in this case, we just did that to verify, and everything lined up and looked perfect. Oh, my back. We have set the timing, so everything is good to go. Now I can start putting all the covers back on and making sure all that stuff is done. I have to torque the crank pulley nut or the bolt, which you just saw me kind of spinning around. I have to attach the tool back up, and then I think it goes to like 210 foot-pounds. So I will do that with my brother-in-law to give me a hand, because there's no way I can put that amount of force on there and hold that bar steady. But we're making good progress, man. So I don't know. I hope this is helpful. It's a lot of work to do the job out by yourself, but it's also a lot of work to film too, because it's like the camera's always in the way and you're trying not to mess it up, but also deliver what hopefully is an informative project for those who are out there that are going to be doing this. So anyways, thanks for watching right now. I'm going to button some more stuff up here and I'll take you along with me on the ride. All right, now we're going to install the drive belt tensioner. These go to 15 foot-pounds. There's 3 bolts. Make sure you don't lose these guys. If you lose these, you got to take the whole crank pulley back off to find them. So that is not good. So be very careful when you're installing these. Ooh, almost lost that guy. All right, we got all threads. Whew, man, that little touch and go there for a minute. These are going to be 15 foot-pounds. Just wanted to make sure everything is dialed in. All right, so 15 foot-pounds there. We are done, man. We got it. I'm so excited. It's taken a long time to do, especially like I said earlier, one guy, multiple days, need help to torque things down and that sort of thing. But this is what we have left over. All the bad stuff. So I got everything done. You can see on here, I put the timing belt replacement maintenance at 60,900 miles. I mean, it's a few miles off, but no big deal. And that's today's date. And then obviously also did the water pump at that point, which I don't have a thing for, but that doesn't matter because I have all the paperwork to show that that was done. I just started filling up the radiator fluid with the correct radiator fluid, which is for Asian vehicles. It's the red coolant. Once this is full, it's good to lift the car off the ground or just get underneath and squeeze the lower radiator hose. It helps to kind of burp the system and get as much air out as you can. Now I'm going to start the car and get that stuff kind of dialed in, let the water pump cycle, and then I'll leave this open for the time being so it doesn't build up pressure so that I can add radiator fluid as I need it, hopefully to get things at the right level. But otherwise, everything is done and buttoned up. It looks fantastic, or essentially exactly like it was when I left it. So I'm excited about that. But I just wanted to thank you all for coming on this journey with me. Hopefully this is helpful for people who are doing this job. They can reference this video, and but I had a lot of fun doing it, and I really appreciate your time and staying with me. All right, thanks.